Hey guys, welcome to our weekly news show here on Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the lawsuits that WhiteHat Jr. has filed against two of its critics, and we're actually going to be hearing from both of them in exclusive Backstage with Millionaires interviews. Google's potential acquisition of ShareChat, the Indian government's plans to set up 69,000 EV charging stations, the next wave of Chinese app bans, India's latest unicorn, and more coming up right after this. All right, so first up in the news, back in August of this year, you might remember that a small edtech startup called WhiteHat Jr. was acquired by the world's largest edtech startup, Byju's, for $300 million. That's 2,250 crore rupees. And at the time, this was something to be celebrated. This was one of the largest startup acquisitions that India's startup ecosystem had ever seen. And the fact that it was in edtech made it even better because who doesn't like education, right? But it looks like since then, things have taken a turn for the worse. First, there was a controversial ad campaign, which the Advertising Standards Council of India forced WhiteHat Jr. to take down. But before these ads were taken down, people were understandably upset, and so they started to take to social media to complain. And that's around the time that social media posts started to go missing. And this isn't just a couple of social media posts on one particular website. I'm talking about YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and even 9gag. In total, according to CoffeeZilla, which is a YouTube channel that's run by the same person as Coffee Break, in the month of October alone, WhiteHat Jr. was able to remove more than 100 social media posts from the internet. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. Two very vocal and popular critics of WhiteHat Jr., software developer Pradeep Poonia and angel investor and Dr. Aniruddha Malpani, are actually being sued by the edtech startup for 20 crore rupees, that's $2.7 million US dollars, and 14 crore rupees, that's $1.9 million respectively. Now, you're going to be hearing from both of these guys in just a couple of minutes, but before I bring them on to share their sides of the story, I wanted to give you a little bit of background information. So let's start things off by talking about Pradeep. So far, his LinkedIn account has been completely removed from the platform, and also two of his YouTube channels are missing as well. He's had to set up a third YouTube channel in order to post his videos so that people can watch them, and you can find a link to that YouTube channel in the description of this video. But in general, with his YouTube content, he's managed to expose a lot of things about WhiteHat Jr. that most people didn't know about. For example, there were two boys, Wolf Gupta and Ryan Venkat, who apparently learned to code from WhiteHat Jr. and went on to get jobs at Google. However, Pradeep Poonia pointed out that in multiple WhiteHat Jr. ads, the names and salaries of these boys seemed to fluctuate a little bit. And then during court proceedings of WhiteHat Jr.'s case against Pradeep, they admitted that Wolf Gupta and Ryan Venkat weren't real kids. They just made them up. They were imaginary, according to WhiteHat Jr. Now, of course, if this had been the only thing that Pradeep exposed on the internet about WhiteHat Jr., then they probably wouldn't have taken him to court. The actual reason why they decided to sue him, the thing that I think really upset them, was the fact that he managed to gain access to their internal Slack communications, and he recorded those internal communications in multiple videos, which he posted on YouTube. Now, how he was able to do that and whether or not it was ethical and legally permissible will be up to the courts to decide. The legal battle is still ongoing, but the High Court has ordered Pradeep to remove some of his social media posts. But besides Pradeep Poonia, we also have Dr. Aniruddha Malpani. Because of his critical posts about both Byju's and WhiteHat Jr., Dr. Malpani has been banned from LinkedIn. And because of his account's removal from the platform, he's actually filed a writ petition against LinkedIn, which means that he's basically going to court with them as well. However, so far, neither Pradeep Poonia or Dr. Aniruddha Malpani have had their accounts removed from Twitter, and so that's actually where they're most active these days. You can find links to both of their Twitter accounts in the description of this video. But anyways, that's enough out of me. Now let's actually listen to what they both have to say.
So I wanted to ask you specifically about some of the things that you've spoken out about. I know you mentioned earlier in the interview Wolf Gupta, you've mentioned fake Play Store reviews. So tell me a little bit about those. What is WhiteHat Jr. actually doing that you're upset about?
So I'll tell you about, I saw the ads back in March and April also this year. So I just ignored them. Like, there are so many scams out there in India, and especially in ethics. So I just thought it is one another scam. So, but when the company was bought by Byju's for $300 million, so I have background from software and in ethic also. So I knew that this company can't be that, that worthy of $300 million. So I started just looking into the product, and I found out that the Google Play Store reviews, all of them were fake. I'm not just saying a couple of them were fake. What I did was I went to the 5-star reviews from my laptop, and I copied them in Control F. I just was finding the duplicates one. For it's there's a half an hour long video on my YouTube channel which they removed like 3-4 times, and I started from the top and I just kept going down and down. I copied and found out all the reviews, not like some of them, all of them had duplicates in there. And for half an hour long, like I kept on going on and on and on. Like I couldn't find a single review which didn't have a copy of it. So this is what made me upset, that how can you have a product and you have all your reviews are fake, and then you are claiming that you are $300 million worth, and then you are pushing parents to buy a product which is already out there for free. And like my first video was like, who is Wolf Gupta? And in the court case, they accepted that the kid is imaginary. They could have accepted it back then also, but they didn't. Now they're apologizing about their marketing gimmicks and all that, but this is not an apology. This is the point when they don't have anything else to say. In court they couldn't have lied, so they accepted it, but they didn't do it earlier. So yeah, that made me really upset. And the point that they are lying to kids, if they were lying to you or me, it would have been like, okay, our companies do that. But if you're lying to a 6-year-old kid, it doesn't mean that you are smart people and the business is really good. No, kid would accept anything you tell them. 6-year-old kids just came to this earth just 6 years back. So like lying to kids doesn't make sense to me. And regarding the case, I'm like very hopeful that the court system will see what's the truth, and what I have said, I do have proofs against it. So yeah.
Are you confident in the evidence that you have?
Yeah, totally 100%. Like we are gonna win the case. That's sure.
So multiple things: misleading ads, a lot of pressure, a lot of mis-selling. And the pressure is not just on the parents to buy the courses, but there's a lot of pressure on the sales guys. So they have a huge amount of churn, hire and fire policy. So they pick up young graduates, promise them the earth and the moon. If you meet these targets, no one reads the fine print when you get a job. And then once they've got the job and you make them work, you say you'll only get your salary when you meet these targets. What amazes me is this: in their own affidavit, the CEO of WhiteHat Jr. acknowledges the fact that he's using this word very kindly, it's a euphemism, imaginary children like Wolf Gupta. What's an imaginary child? It's a lie, however you put on it. So effectively you're saying in a court, yes, I lied. So why did you lie? You lied because you wanted to make more money. That's the only reason anyone lies, because you created a fictional character. And then you sold that story. You got celebrities to endorse it. You sold that story to parents who would then fall into your trap. I think it's unfair what LinkedIn did, and therefore I need to do something about it. So what is my redressal? So I said we need to take them to court. This is what we did. We filed a writ petition in Mumbai High Court saying you have no business censoring my right to free speech on your platform. So here's the response we got. So we had 3 dates so far. And again, it's, you send they reply, then you send a rejoinder, you get another date, which takes 15 days, then you reply, then you have argument. So this is something which is going to continue. But you know what the first response was? You can't sue us. We are not answerable to the Indian judiciary. In one sense, they cocked a snoot at the Indian judiciary, saying we don't care about the Indian judiciary. We are linked in India. We're just the marketing arm of LinkedIn USA. If you want to sue anyone, go sue LinkedIn and do that in California. You can't sue us in India.
So I hope you guys enjoyed those snippets. The full interviews will also be posted in case you want to go check them out. There will be links to both of those in the description down below. And I just want to say, WhiteHat Jr, Karamba Judge, if you guys are watching this video right now, and I'm sure that you are watching this video because you're trying to figure out how you can take it down, if you've got people like Pradeep Poonia and Dr. Aniruddha Malpani sticking their necks out and taking big risks just to expose the things that you are doing, if you've got people like Steven from CoffeeZilla and Coffee Break calling you thuggish, if you've got people like Carl Rock calling you bullies, if you've got people like Amod Malviya, who is one of the co-founders of Udaan, calling your ads cringeworthy, if you're scouring the internet as far as 9gag just to find critical posts and comments to delete, then you're doing something wrong. Something is not right with you guys. This is not a problem with the rest of the world. This is a problem with you. But anyways, I'm really not sure how long this video is going to be up for. It might be up indefinitely, or it might only be up for a couple of hours. But either way, it would really help us out if you guys hit that like button and also hit subscribe if you haven't already, because we post new videos every single week about Indian startups, entrepreneurs, and the latest news. Also, you can find us on all of these social media platforms as well as on Discord, and you can find links to all of those in the description down below. But moving on to the next news item here, Google is reportedly in advanced talks with Indian language social media startup ShareChat for an acquisition. Now, so far, neither Google or ShareChat has said anything about this deal. But if reports are to be believed, then this acquisition would take ShareChat's valuation from $650 million, that's 4,800 crore rupees, to a little bit more than $1 billion, that's 7,380 crore rupees, which would make ShareChat a unicorn. Now, in case you don't know anything about ShareChat and you're wondering why Google might be interested in acquiring them, ShareChat is a social media platform that focuses primarily on Indian people who don't speak English. So far, they support 15 Indian languages, and they have more than 130 million monthly active users, that's 13 crore monthly active users. Besides this, they've also acquired a number of different smaller startups like Ilanic, Circle Internet, HPF Films, and Memer. And then on top of all of that, they have a Silicon Valley-based research and development center called ShareChat Labs. Oh, and I almost forgot, ShareChat also has a short video app called Moj, which has more than 80 million monthly active users, that's 8 crore monthly active users. And so owning that would enable Google to compete with Instagram Reels, which of course is owned by Facebook, and also TikTok, which is owned by ByteDance. Earlier this year, Google had announced a $10 billion investment, that's a 7,500 crore rupee investment, into India through its Google for India Digitization Fund. The purpose of this fund, according to Google, is to provide Indian people with affordable access to information in their local languages, and they also want to build products and services that meet the unique needs of these people. So yeah, if you take this fund and these goals into account, then it really makes a lot of sense why Google is interested in acquiring ShareChat. An acquisition would give them access to its vernacular capabilities, its products, and its millions of users. Either way though, at the moment these are just reports. Like I said earlier, neither ShareChat or Google has confirmed anything, but I'm curious to know, what do you guys think about this potential acquisition? Would this be beneficial to the people of India or not? Let me know in a comment down below. Next up in the news, in a bid to accelerate the adoption of EVs here in India, Nitin Gadkari, who is the Minister of Road Transport and Highways, has announced that the government will be setting up more than 69,000 EV charging stations across the country by setting up one EV charging station at every single petrol pump. And here's the thing, a lot of people are really scared about buying an EV because of range anxiety. They imagine themselves driving from point A to point B and getting stuck along the way because their batteries run dry. However, if there was a charging station at every single petrol pump in the country, then this wouldn't be a problem anymore. And I don't know, I'm a really optimistic guy. I really hope that this is something that actually happens. But of course, we also have to look at some of the promises that have been made in the past. Because if you'll remember, back in 2017, Nitin Gadkari had said that India would be 100% electric by 2030. That's just a decade away. He said, "I am going to do this whether you like it or not. And I am not going to ask you. I will bulldoze it. So he seemed pretty adamant that this was something that was going to happen, but then cut to 2019 and that target of 100% had been reduced to 30%. Besides this, another target which he has set is for India to become the #1 manufacturing hub for electric vehicles by 2025. This would mean overtaking both the United States and China, and currently India isn't really on track to accomplish this goal, but let's see. If there's 69,000 charging stations across the country, say in 2 or 3 years, then it might actually be achievable because demand for electric vehicles might increase here in India. What do you guys think? Is this something that's actually going to happen? Are we going to see 69,000 EV charging stations across the country or not? Let me know in a comment down below. All right, next up in the news, real quick, earlier this week, we saw the 4th wave of Chinese apps banned here in India. Out of the 43 apps that were banned during this 4th wave, the biggest were AliExpress by Alibaba and Snack Video by Kuaizhou. Since the ban of TikTok here in India back in June, Snack Video was downloaded more than 190 million times. That's 19 crore times. And out of all of those downloads, 154 million, that's 15.4 million, were from India. You can find a link to the list of all of the Chinese apps that were banned during this 4th wave in the description down below. All right, moving on to some funding news now. Cars 24 has raised $200 million, that's 1,478 crore rupees, in its Series E round from DST Global, Exor Seeds, More Strategic Ventures, and Unbound. In raising these funds, Cars 24 has done 2 things. 1, they've doubled the amount of funds that they've raised, and 2, they've achieved a valuation of more than $1 billion. That's 7,383 crore rupees, making them India's latest unicorn. In fact, they're the 8th Indian startup to become a unicorn this year. Other 2020 Indian unicorns include Pine Labs, Nykaa, First Cry, Postman, Zerodha, Unacademy, and Razorpay. Founded by Vikram Chopra, Mehul Agarwal, Rajendra Jungid, and Ruchit Agarwal in 2015, Cars 24 started its operations in Gurugram but has since expanded to more than 130 Indian cities. They've also managed to sell more than 2 lakh cars, that's more than 200,000 cars in the last 5 years, and they're also well on their way to generating gross annual revenue of $600 million, that's 4,420 crore rupees. Cars 24 is going to be using these fresh funds to invest in its product in order to improve the online experience for both sellers and buyers. Now, speaking of unicorns, let's move on to the next funding news item. EdTech unicorn Unacademy has raised an undisclosed amount of funds from Tiger Global Management and Dragoneer Investment Group. According to TechCrunch, the funds raised in this round are expected to be between $75 million and $100 million. That's between 554 crore rupees and 738 crore rupees. With these funds, Unacademy's valuation has jumped from $1.45 billion, that's 10,700 crore rupees, to $2 billion, that's 14,761 crore rupees. Unacademy is helping students to prepare for competitive exams so that they can get into good schools and eventually get high-paying jobs. The startup claims to have more than 47,000 educators on its platform who are conducting more than 150,000 live online classes, that's 1.5 lakh live online classes, for students across more than 5,000 cities. Also, this year alone, Unacademy has acquired 5 edtech startups including Creatrix, CodeChef, PrepLadder, Mastery, and Coursavvy. Alright, that is all the startup news that I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, once again, make sure to hit the like button. That would really help us out, and also hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires, and I will see you in the next one.